Now, I want to keep with the departments here, because the one that I probably get asked the most about is the IRS. The one that people are just saying is growing and growing and growing. I think Governor Johnson has something to say. Is there a route to eliminate the IRS? Eliminate, not downsize, but eliminate.
My three promises. My three promises as President of the United States. I promised to submit a balanced budget to Congress 2013. I promised to veto legislation where expenses exceed revenue. Third promise, I promised to advocate on the part of throwing out the entire federal tax system and replacing it with the fair tax. If y'all haven't checked out the fair tax, check it out. Fairtax.org does away with all federal tax. Income tax, corporate tax, does away with withholdings, does away with the IRS. A 23% consumption tax on new goods and services. I am an absolute free market guy. I'm not operating in a vacuum here. My economics advisor, Jeff Myron, free market economist, Harvard, which is kind of a oxymoron, but has a book on the bookshelves right now, Libertarianism A through Z, but free market economists will say that the fair tax is, as the name implies, it's fair. The more money you make, the more fair tax you will pay, and it will also promote savings, which is a big, huge item, a big, huge issue in this country, because we need to stop printing money. Borrowing money is one thing, printing money is another. Back to the fair tax. The fair tax eliminates the corporate tax. So if in an environment in this country with zero corporate tax, the private sector does not create tens of millions of jobs, I don't know under what scenario that takes place.
Governor Roemer, I'm going to ask you the same question here about the IRS. Would you be in favor of something similar to a fair tax, a flat tax, eliminating the IRS?
Well, I'm a flat tax guy from the beginning. Much better than a fair tax, much lower rate, in my opinion. A flat tax works like this. The first $50,000 of income, tax-free. That's a family of 4. Everything above that is 17%. If you make $100,000, family of 4, you pay 8.5% on that $100,000. 0 on the first 50, 17% on the second 50. There's no double tax. Dividends are tax-free. Already paid at the corporate level, which is 17%. And I disagree with Governor Johnson. His corporations do have a responsibility. The Marine Corps protects them too. They're lucky to be in America too. And they ought to pay a little something. And my disagreement with this tax code is that it's unfair. And the benefits go to the special few. And it's not right. It's unjust. And it hurts America. A flat tax takes care of that. Here's what a flat tax does. No double tax. No alternative minimum tax. No marriage penalty. It is clean. It is simple. It still requires a minimum IRS. And this could be a downside. It requires a minimum IRS to compute the single page that you turn in. 10 lines in your total tax reform. It eliminates all tax consultants. But the most important thing, Tea Party, the most important thing is that its rate is marginally very low. You are totally free, and there's no corruption. There are no tax lobbyists in Washington. This is how congressmen get reelected. They make tax changes just for 2 years at a time. And they keep going back to the lobbyists, and the lobbyists to them, and they feed them money. Gary doesn't know. He hasn't been there. He'll learn when he's president. He'll learn that the damage is done in the quiet back rooms by the lobbyists. And they're done at the margin. And they're done because GE wants a little favor. And you get a tax code that humans can't read. You get a tax code that you cannot read, but GE can read it. They wrote it. And when they make $5.4 billion and pay no taxes, it cost them money. You know what it cost them? They gave the maximum contribution to every member of Congress. They were the largest contributor corporate givers to John McCain and Barack Obama. They gave $4.3 million. You know who the second largest was? Goldman Sachs. There's something wrong in America, and you don't trust this system. And it's not the IRS. They're horrible. It is a code designed by the politicians for one thing, to get them reelected. It's not right.
All right, Governor Johnson, I'll let you respond to that. He invoked your name twice there.
I went down to Occupy Wall Street a couple of weeks ago, and I share in the outrage that is being expressed by Occupy whatever, and that is that this country doles it out unfairly. If you're connected politically, individually, group, corporation, you pay for favors, and you pay for favors and you get favors. So this is not a country of equality. It's not. And it needs to be. That's what this country needs to be about. So I'm going to argue that the income tax started out as a flat tax, started out as something very simple, but morphed into what it's morphed into today. I think you really need to scrap the entire federal tax system, replace it with the fair tax. And fair tax, there's one caveat in the fair tax, and that is that there's a theory that it will act, first of all, it's revenue neutral. It's not a tax increase, it's not a tax decrease. It's based on GDP and a percentage of that GDP and what we're going to garner. But it's estimated that right now in the cost of all, and it applies to new goods and services, not used goods. But it's estimated that right now in the cost of every goods and service is a 23% tax. So if you take a Coca-Cola you buy for $1, in that Coca-Cola is 23 cents worth of tax. I mean, employers have to match Social Security, for example. With the fair tax, Social Security will come out of the fair tax. You'll get your entire payroll check, no more withholdings. That will come out of the fair tax. But there's an estimate that right now, the Coke that costs $1 has a 23-cent embedded tax. I think we can all see that. Implement the fair tax, and what happens is that everybody kind of does a contraction when it comes to consumption, because that's what you're now going to get taxed on. And Coca-Cola immediately is going to realize, as is everybody else, that we don't need to charge $1 on that Coke anymore to make money. We can charge 80 cents for that Coke. And the theory is that the fair tax would actually be cost neutral over a very short amount of time.
GrokTV.